Hello, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again on this little series of videos. This is the second in the series, which is introducing people to Pilates. So if you have never done Pilates, or if you've done other forms of exercise and you're not quite sure how to sort of translate that into Pilates, welcome, you're in the right place. I'm going to be talking through some of the starting positions today, or just positions that we refer to in the workout, so that when I start throwing out words like supine, prone, they start ringing a few bells. We'll touch on a couple of things we talked about in the previous video as well, but if you missed that one, feel free to go back and have a look. It's still on the channel. So we are going to start in a seated position, nice and easy. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to be sitting. Sitting, however, is comfortable is how I usually refer to it. Most people are comfortable in a cross-legged position, whether it's nice and compact or slightly more open around the hip joint. Occasionally we will be seated with the feet in line with the sit bones. If that's really not accessible to you in the hips, in the back, you can also put that onto a chair. Just seat yourself onto a chair, again, legs in parallel. An example of that might be one of the exercises that I often start with, which is our breathing exercise. So if you're with me, let's give it a go. We're going to take the hands onto the shins and just sit the spine nice and tall, finding our neutral spine. We talked a little bit about neutral in the previous video, but thinking about having our neutral S-shaped curve. So the spine, as we know, is slightly S-shaped. So we don't want to flatten the spine. We definitely don't want to slump down. So finding that easy neutral, lifting through the top of the head, but also grounding down through the sit bones underneath. We're going to take a deep breath in. Breathing into the side and back of the ribs before we exhale. To start curving over through the spine, rounding through the back into this high curved position. And in this place we can take 3 deep breaths. So it's always inhaling through the nose. And as we talked about in the 5 basic principles, we're thinking about that expansion of the rib cage like a life jacket, so inflating in all directions. We're exhaling through the mouth like we're blowing up a balloon underneath our legs. And at the end of your 3rd breath, you can gently restack yourself back into that seated neutral position, calming back up. And of course, if that was not the way for you to be in that leg position, you could also take something like that with the legs crossed. So the hands can just slide with you as you find your curve through the spine, and they can slide with you as you gently unroll again back up into your neutral. Another one of the positions that we refer to is the quadruped. So this is this one here where you've got your shoulders over your hands and your hips over your knees. And we are trying to come to a neutral spine. So if you're looking at the line of my back, I don't want to flatten it, but I equally don't want to sink down. I want to find that happy middle ground again, that natural S-shaped curve, thinking of my hip bones and pubic bone being in the same level plane. So try not to stick your tailbone up and try not to drop it down, finding that neutral alignment in between. And one of the exercises, for example, we might do here would be our protraction and retraction of the shoulder blades. Don't worry, these are just fancy words I'm throwing out, but I would always explain it in the class. What I mean is squeezing the shoulder blades together and then separating them. So we can inhale as they draw together, and we can exhale as they separate. So trying to stay long in the back of the spine, squeezing together, squeezing apart, making sure that we don't start sinking into the chest. So it's really just your neutral spine raising and lowering in space. Try and stay long in the back of the neck. Often people get tempted to start lifting through the chin, really lengthen through the back surface. And then we can bring ourselves somewhere into a little middle ground place once again, where we are finding our neutral alignment of the shoulders, or the scapula, which again, that refers back to what we were talking about in the 5 basic principles, that scapular and shoulder stabilization. So we've had seated, we've had quadruped. The one that you're going to be most familiar with is the supine position, laying down on your back. Oh, what a nice little rest moment. Have a little lay down. Take your feet in line with the sit bones and the knees up to the sky. Rest your hands down by your sides. That is most common, your most common starting position for a lot of exercises, and it's our most common version of our supine. Also, we can have extended legs sometimes with the feet flexed or pointed, but usually you're going to have your knees to the sky. It's a functional position that then moves us into other things, such as our tabletop. So we'll come back to tabletop in a second as we are in our neutral spine once again. Hip bones, pubic bone, like a seesaw in balance, neither one tipping to the sky, nice and level in the centre. As we're here, we could find ourselves taking some arm raises. We breathe in to take the arms to the sky. We exhale to reach them overhead. Remember, not dropping down into the floor. Nice long reach. Inhale to the sky and exhale down again. We've already done our protraction, retraction of the shoulder blades, our squeezing and releasing of our shoulder blades to warm up the muscles around the shoulder socket. So now we're adding longer levers, reaching through the arms, smoothly coming down. Let's go for one more. Breathing into the sky, breathing out, making sure the rib cage doesn't flare open as the arms reach overhead. Inhale up once again, exhale to come down. We had our neutral spine. Let's look at our imprinted spine. Again, referring to those 5 basic principles. We can take our ribs and our hips slightly closer together on an exhale. Finding a low level contraction around the waist, wrapping in towards the center. Wide flat abdominals. My lower back has dropped down towards the floor. My pubic bone has tilted to the sky. It's not too extreme. We want stability, but not rigidity. We want to be able to move from these positions. So coming back to your neutral, let's take that once again. Breathing in. Exhale to gently slide ribcage and pelvis together. And then from there, we can move into our tabletop position. This is going to stay, so you've got to be able to breathe. It's going to be there for a little while. That's going to stay in its imprint position. And you're going to slowly lift one leg into this right angle position. This is our half tabletop, and then we have slowly peeling the other foot up to meet it. Our tabletop legs. You can take a slightly more open tabletop once you start building the strength around the abdominals, or you can also take that into a diagonal leg. Now that can be as high or as low as you can stabilize around the waist in that imprint. Yeah? But to begin with, you're going to be working from this tabletop position. And for example, one of the exercises we might take here in our warm-up is our toe taps, or tapping the toe towards the floor and then replacing back again. We could inhale as the leg comes away, exhale to replace. If it's more comfortable to breathe the other way, that is also an option. Making sure that there's no jerking or jarring through the spine. And that leg is only going as low as you feel comfortable. So if it's just a little opening through the hip flexor, that's absolutely fine. As this one is moving, this one's trying to stay nice and still, switching it again. So there's no additional movement, trying not to sink one in towards you. So there's more challenge because we've added load to the lower half of the body. So let's go for one more on either side, just to be nice and even. We always want to try and work evenly in Pilates. And then we can release one foot and the other down to the floor and release our spine and pelvis back to neutral. So we've had seated, quadruped, we've had supine, and we've had tabletop from a supine position. The only other one I'm going to go for now is the prone position, which completely the opposite, laying over on your tummy instead. I'm going to flip around this way so I can see you slightly better. And so we have laying down onto our belly. There are several little variations between prone positions according to what exercise you are about to do, and I will always give clarification of that, whether the hands are going to be just outside of the shoulders, whether they're going to be underneath the forehead, whether they're going to be long in front of you. Let's place them under the forehead for a second. So ideally you want your forehead resting down, nose touching towards the floor, and the legs are either going to be together, slightly separated in line with the sit bones, or separated to the edges of the mat or just outside of your shoulders, possibly rotated. And again, I will always make that clear depending on what exercise we're about to go into. So let's take our legs completely together, or if that's uncomfortable in the lower back, just slightly separate them and take them into a parallel position. So you want your heels looking to the sky and your knees looking straight down into your mat, rather than letting them flip out to the sides. So there's a little bit of engagement down the backs of the legs. We can take our hands just outside of our shoulders. Now, as we are here, we still want to think about our neutral spine. So we're wrapping that corset muscle around the waist, wrapping in towards the belly button. If that's unfamiliar, feel free to have a look at the first video. I go into a little more detail on that. And we have our neutral, stabilized shoulders. So neither protracting nor retracting. It's that happy middle ground once again. From here, we can take a deep breath in. Let's take this into our breaststroke prep. It's one of our exercises where we lengthen the top of the spine forwards and start to lift the top of the chest away from the floor. You can see the back of my neck is nice and long, following the line of the upper back, not breaking at the chin there. Wide breath in, exhale as you start to come down. Keep reaching long through the spine. Your legs are reaching back, your head is reaching forward. Everything is lengthening together. We breathe in, we breathe out to lengthen through. Inhale to stay, and exhale to come down. Let's take that one more time, making sure that your legs haven't flopped out to the sides. Keep them nice and active. Tummy button lifted underneath. The forearms are staying down, just so we've got some support from the sides. Nice and long through the back of the waist. Exhale to bring yourself down. Take your hands underneath your shoulders. Press yourself up. We are going to come back into our shell stretch. So from a kneeling position, we can sit back into the heels. We can round through the spine and find this curved shape, this shell shape, shell like a tortoise shell. If that is not, for any reason, comfortable to you, you can also take your shell stretch in your supine position. It starts to feed together now, isn't it? Supine position, hugging the legs into the chest and taking a deep breath there instead. Relaxing the chest, the shoulders, the arms, long in the back of the neck. Whichever position you have taken your shell stretch, gently bring yourself back up to a seated place. And that is our little video for our start positions. There are a couple of others as well. Sometimes you might be kneeling, sometimes you might be standing, but the majority of exercises you're going to be supine or coming into a tabletop position. There is also side lying. Again, it will become very clear as we're going through the classes how these positions work, and I will always help you get into the ideal setup. So the alignment, talking about the alignment through the spine, through the skeleton, and how we can muscularly support that. Thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you in the next video.